'cause this land's a place I love, and here I'll stay.
He's back. After 6 years, Burton Cummings has a new album out, his 32nd. Can you believe that? We play some of his greatest hits. It's a solo album, just the man and his piano. Success came early to Cummings. He started out playing in a local Winnipeg band called the Deverons. By age 17, he had been invited to join the Guess Who. That group, of course, became famous with hits like this. Cummings has won 10 Juno Awards. He taped his new release, Up Close and Alone, at the Glenn Gould Studios in Toronto. Brent met with Burton Cummings at the piano.
Bravo, Burton Cummings. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's a great new album. It's like a photo album with music. How did you decide what went in this?
These songs have proven themselves over, some of them indeed over decades now of time, and yet many people, even the staunchest fans, you know, have told me that the songs sound a bit fresh basically because of the sparseness. You know, it's just piano and voice. It's kind of almost an album done of proven material from a songwriter's slant.
So, but what do you do when you have a song like Albert Flasher coming on, which is a great rock and roll song? You know there's a guitar line in there. You don't have it. You just have a piano. How do you deal with that?
When I first started working out Albert Flasher, there's a break in where it goes, baby and me were right for the picking, and that was all just drums and voice. Yeah. When I initially decided to start doing these solo shows, Albert Flasher was one of the things I wanted to do.
Right.
There is a breakdown in the middle, which was just drums and vocal, where baby and me were right for the picking. So I'm thinking, how am I going to do this on stage? So it was like a breakdown on an A minor chord, so I just started going. That was the day we ready to have a Flasher. Then back to the riff.
But these things work so well in the record. Did you ever think to yourself, hey, what did I need a band for in the first place? I could have done all this myself.
Well, these days I'm thinking more like that, but I won't stay permanently alone, you know. It's just, I wouldn't probably have written most of these songs had I not been in a band situation. I was thinking for guitars and drums and that real backbeat of rock and roll that is the life breath of rock and roll. It's kind of a good trick to be able to incorporate the songs to just keyboard and voice, you know, and I had to do some serious rehearsing at home to just getting them to sound fuller with nothing but piano and vocal, you know. There are certain ones that obviously I could never do, like American Woman is all guitars and drums.
Right.
No Time is one that I really don't do, and certain things I have to avoid. Songs like Star Baby, which are like kicking guitar and drums. But for the main part, a lot of things that were very steeped in piano on the record, like Sour Sweet. That whole thing is that riff. That's such a huge part of that record.
But then
it works fine by itself.
There's the great chorus of that, too. Would you tell us finally what 46201 means?
46201 is the zip code for part of Indianapolis. And I had an on and off girlfriend there for a while. About a year, we kind of saw each other once in a while. And we were writing it mainly, then we kept each other in touch with each other through the mail. And I was living with a couple guys in a little house north end of Winnipeg, and they always put my mail on the piano every day. And I had finished most of the song of Sour Sweet, except I didn't know how to kind of wrap up the second half. I was looking for the bookend for the end of the song. And they had put my mail on the piano, and her return address was on the envelope, and at the bottom of her return address was the zip code, and the 46201.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and I'm looking over, and it's just like 46201. I said, hey, you know, I kind of like the way that sounds.
It's great,
So I
because
just I started singing the numbers for no apparent reason, but I liked the way it sounded.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's really no set of rules to writing songs.
No, but
so
how did you
I
know
left
that?
it that way.
I mean, that's what songwriting is all about, is taking something that's obscure and shouldn't work, but it really does, and it's kind of mysterious, and yet it's perfect. It fits right into place. How do you get that confident? How do you get the craft to the point where you can put something like 4-6-2-1 in a song, and it's right?
I think because I am still a fan of other people's music, I can sometimes almost hear my songs as if they were someone else's. And when I sang those numbers, and the melody kind of came out of my head and adorned those numbers, I said, I like that. You know, I'm still a fan and a listener. If this weren't mine, I would like it. So I left it that way. And when I played it for the guys in the band, and Jack Richardson, our producer at the time, and RCA, everybody liked the song. It's a good set of lyrics, too, which you know, now that I'm approaching middle age, my lyrics mean more to me. And that set of lyrics in Sour Sweet has stood up very well for over 20 years.
Too high?
Yeah, I don't want to think about a runaway dad that took away the only thing that I never had. Like, I was from a broken parentage, you know, and my dad, I never really knew my dad. My mother grabbed me and ran when I was about a year old, because my dad was really a mess. And
So was that a stigma for
was
you
all,
at that time, in that place, you know?
I'll tell you, when it only bothered me several times in my life was the first day of school in grade 1 and grade 2, when in front of the whole class everyone gets up and tells what their father does for a living, and you don't have a father, and that's like a horrendous, when you're a little kid, that's an anchor around your neck. That's a horrendous, catastrophic feeling. Then by the time you're 9 or 10, the other kids don't tease you anymore, because they're aware enough by that age to realize that it's not something you had control over. But I got teased a lot when I was a little kid, and that hurt a bit, but overall, I never missed anything. You know, I was too young to feel the sense of loss, because I wasn't a year old yet. It's not like for a teenager, or maybe somebody 10 or 12 years old whose parents get divorced. Yeah. That can be cataclysmic, you know. Sure. For me, it wasn't so bad. My grandmother kind of raised me while my mother went out to work and supported me, and I had a lot of love and a lot of attention, and I had music in the air all the time. And
because you look like such a happy kid in these pictures in here.
I have great recollections of a happy childhood in Winnipeg, in the prairies of Manitoba in the early 50s. The sun was always shining. You didn't have to lock your door at night. There was no violence. It was a very happy time for me.
It's interesting that you waited until this point of your career to pull a nude scene.
The president of MCA, Ross Reynolds, wanted to include a sticker on the cover that said "nude photo enclosed." So I don't know.
Do you have a sort of ambivalent relationship with your hometown of Winnipeg?
Yes. What happened was, you know, I had a band called the Devrons for years before.
To whom this record's dedicated.
Oh, yes, and I really miss those guys very much. I miss those days, because those days were more innocent. But we were part of a thriving local scene when I was in the Devrons. And then I got my huge break, like this Cinderella brass ring break of a lifetime. I was 17 years old, and the Guess Who asked me to join their band. They had already had Shakin' All Over, and they had already toured the States with major stars, and they were probably the best-known band in Canada. And I was 17, they phoned me up. So I joined the Guess Who, and then we started traveling away from Winnipeg, and we'd go away for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 months at a time. And I think we got resented by the local bands that weren't catching on to that same level of success. And then I felt a bit ostracized for a while. Then when These Eyes hit, and then Laughing and Undone and American Woman and Share the Land, and we were flying over to Paris and Australia and playing New York and Miami and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and LA and doing American Bandstand and getting gold records from Dick Clark. That's when the separation seemed to occur for me. Then that's when the resentment came in. I think to a great degree, Winnipeg never realized how proud we were of Winnipeg. And we appeared on the Johnny Cash show in 1970, and Johnny introduced, which was the hottest show on television at the time, and Johnny introduced us as from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We always made sure that people knew we were Winnipeg guys from the prairies of Canada. But I
Have you
felt
resolved
like
that?
I felt ostracized from the city. I felt like cut off and almost resented. Oh, I have a great time there now.
Yeah.
A wonderful relationship with the city. I sang the national anthem at the Grey Cup in 1991. I was the celebrity captain for the Jets for that season, and I sang the anthems at least 60 Jets games, and they've named a community center after me there now, a beautiful complex, and every time I drive by, it's a little bit surreal, you know.
Yeah, sure.
I thought they only named buildings after guys after they died,
Well,
you know.
you checked your pulse, I guess.
Yeah, oh, I'm feeling okay.
One of the most instantly identifiable intros, Tinny Pop Song, is the intro for These Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me how you wrote that?
I'll tell you a very interesting story. I didn't write that piano intro. Randy Bachman actually wrote that piano intro, but that was as far as he was with the song. Now, I think he might even have had the idea of These Eyes Cry Every Night for You. He came over to I was still living at home with my mother and grandmother in the north end of Winnipeg. He came over to the house on a Saturday morning, and Randy is a very gifted musician. You know, he can play a lot of different instruments. And he said, look, Burton, I got a little thing here. Let's see if we can do something with this. And he went like this. I think he sang, These Eyes Cry Every Night for You. That was it. That was basically, he wanted to show me this.
So you did the Hurtin's on Me? You
Oh
came up with
yeah,
that?
I did all that part, and I did that. Most importantly, my biggest contribution was that whole middle. Which really tremendously complemented the verses of the song. We needed a great bridge to go to, so it was a lot of give and take in that song. But I give him full credit. He planted the original seed, and I'm like a 20-year-old kid sitting there watching the lead guitarist in my band play this very cool piano intro. I'm thinking to myself, man, that's pretty good for a guitar player.
But I got to come up with something that makes the song even better.
Oh yeah, well I had to rise to the occasions. One thing Randy always did was make me work harder, you know, rise to his level, because he knew so much more than I did.
Burton Cummings, Up Close and Alone, these are the songs of our lives. Thank you very much for being with
what
us.
a nice thing to say. Thank you very much.
I should laugh, but I cry, because your love has passed me by. You took me by surprise.
Well, may I say bravo. That was just
It was such a thrill to
wonderful.
sit there and have him play those songs for you.
And what you
know?
said is so right, the songs of our lives.
They
I mean,
are.
I can remember every single one of those songs, and you know, I love the stuff at the piano. He's still got a great voice.
He
Well,
does.
still, he's my age. You know, I mean,
Well, he's in terrific voice in this record.